Basically, I don't know what butt rock is. Can you tell us what butt rock is?
Oh my gosh.
I was like, what is this? Am I just missing something?
Are you ready? Are you ready? You don't see wrong on the reading on the tree. I read that I see and I knew. You know songs like that?
Squeegee Ink Podcast, Season 2. This podcast is sponsored by Blind Maggot, Magna Colours, M&R, Target Transfers, and Adobe Creative Suite.
My name is Jonathan. I feel like I may be the fourth or fifth Jonathan to come on, but there's a lot of us out there. I live in Columbia, Missouri. I co-own and am the production manager at 1-to-1 Print Shop here in Columbia, Missouri. And the print shop allows me to do a lot of fun and creative things, and that's kind of the basis for the business. So I started, I'll call it a creative endeavor, if you will. Everything is mediocre. It's kind of based around the word mediocre. It's kind of a nudge to things such as Supreme, where it's pretty good, and that's all right. You know, that's kind of my whole thing. That's just me. But that's allowed me to, to dig in a little bit creatively, dig into my creativity a little bit, where like business to business and printing is oftentimes given a job, knocking it out, which I love doing. But kind of the 1-to-1 Print Shop is co-owned again by me and my wife, Kelly, who is currently work from home and is really the behind the scenes, just runs everything. And I make sure stuff gets printed. We started in our basement in 2014, in the basement, like a lot of people. We both had screen printing experience. So we started to build it up from there, and then slowly it builds it up into whatever this is we're doing now.
Yeah, I think that comes across a lot with your stuff, with this kind of like need to express yourself creatively. You made me not be able to say it now.
Yeah, no, we're making up words at this point. Creatively, yeah. Yeah,
because you're always kind of like getting into new interests and things, aren't you? So you've got the mediocre TV, but then you'll probably always jump on some kind of, if someone wants to do something fun, you'll probably put that as a priority over, normal
I think that's
job.
the word. That's the word. Whenever I think I first really butted up against it was when we had the ability to start decorating this space we're currently in, which is our second physical space, our second brick and mortar location. We've been here for about 5 years, but when we first got to decorate it, the one word, and I know this is so silly, but it's me. I was like, fun. I want it to be fun in here. I want to have fun. I did not have fun screen printing for other people. I have fun screen printing. Why don't I just make this fun? And that's really what I try to do. Spur of the moment, just goofy stuff, kind of, again, this kind of ribbing myself, like giving myself trouble. I guess I kind of like to think of myself as my own audience, and I'm just having fun. But yeah, that does lead into, kind of doing multiple things on multiple platforms. You kind of mentioned before, we've been kind of bopping each other on the shoulder and waving for years and years. So I'm glad to be here now. But, Instagram, it's a lot of both screen printing content, and then I feel like the creativity of screen printing runs me into a lot of people who do completely different things. So like video work, and I'll catch a little bit of their creativity. I'm like, what? I want to try some video stuff. And I free up an hour or two of my time to try it out, or just various things like that. I really like working alongside people, feeding off their energy, and kind of using the business as a platform to honestly allow myself to explore it, which is something I never really did earlier in life.
Yeah, I think it's actually something that is a trap for a lot of small business owners, is they feel like they have to take on unlimited amount of work. And even if you find yourself and you're like, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do these jobs for these particular customers. And it's not that the customers are bad. You're just like, this isn't what I want to spend my life doing. And is that why you've kind of had to like adapt? And well, not had to, but you've allowed yourself to bring in your other interests and make it fun for yourself. Otherwise you ain't last.
Yeah, you got me. I mean, you got me full on. I feel like that. And I feel like that's kind of the catch 22 of screen printing, if you will, is there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people doing it in a lot of different spaces. I think even here in Columbia, we've got 8 people doing it. But the thing that means is that I don't have any hard feelings, if there's something I don't want to do, don't have capacity to do, don't feel like I can really knock out of the park, I've gone as far as to, I have pals in the printing industry here, and I will direct stuff their way. Because for me, it's kind of lessens what I do to try to stretch myself too thin, be it time, be it my possibilities. I've worked at a shop prior, and again, probably learned a lot from this shop on how to both do and not do business. They would just stretch themselves so thin. Any job that came in, they were like, we can't pass on a job. We can't pass on a job. And I just always wanted to be able to pass on a job. As silly as that is as a business, and maybe that's the antithesis to a business, but I always wanted to give myself that luxury, if you will, as far as business. Because, there are certain things that I don't want to do, both, for numerous reasons sometimes, not often too personal, or a job that we just don't have the ability to do. In the screen printing world, we're small, so we're very streamlined. We do screen printing, hand screen, you understand that completely. And we stick to that. If somebody comes in and wants something else, we try to just guide them along their way. Yeah. Because yes, you're exactly right. That is why I do things the way I do.
Yeah, but it also can be quite like you can accidentally isolate yourself, and it can be a lonely thing. So that's why I think things back in the, I'm going to say back in the day, because it was well over a year ago, that we did like Clubhouse, and that's how we started chatting to each other, isn't it? That's
completely right, yeah.
But like that kind of community and seeing like, oh, okay, people are in exactly the same boat as me. What decisions are they making? So is there any, like, what are you modeling your business on? Are you ever thinking about like being this big shop with a few autos, or are you really happy as you've described yourselves as like a small mum and pop shop, haven't you? So.
Yeah, that's the cliche, and I think we pretty well fit it. And I love it. I love doing what we're doing now. I've worked in shops that operated at a lower capacity, if you will, kind of just helping people do DIY stuff. And I also have run an automatic press, and I really like this realm. I like it a lot. I like the patience I can have with jobs being on a manual. I feel like with an automatic, you kind of get into the world of if the press isn't spinning, you're not making money. And it's real. And I've been there. I've tried to print 800-900 shirts an hour, and I just found that I didn't like it. And I tried to really create and give myself the ability to just not do that anymore. So I really do like what we have now. We do have 2 manual presses, 4-color and a 6-color, 4 stations on both, and a 10-foot wide or 10-foot long, 3-foot wide, which is that width is key. Which we can get both of those presses going and moving pretty quickly. We've also figured out ways to kind of double up, or have 2 people on a press where somebody's loading and the other person's printing one color. You're lifting up and moving pretty quickly. So our efficiency is still there, and it doesn't hurt us as far as when it comes down to brass tacks, if you will, is in regards to the business. It is still very profitable. So I do believe we're very comfortable, and I speak for both co-owners of the business. When we're very, very comfortable where we're operating at. It also helps us within our locale. There are a lot of automatic and multiple automatic shops in town that are doing a lot of contract work and a lot of large orders. So we kind of come in and kind of hover down low, and the people who are like, I went somewhere, they're not touching 25 shirts, and we're like, cool, we can do that. So I really love occupying that space, and I've really found that there are some really cool clients to work with, and community. We've really built up a community by working in that space. So it's been awesome, to be honest.
I don't know if it's the same in America, but would you still call yourself like punk? Because
that's fun. Yeah, I would say so. I feel like I've used the word cliches a few times, but maybe I'm a million of those. I would say so. We do try to do stuff that we don't talk about. I would say, let me pull down this poster real quick. So I took a day off the other day and printed a bunch of protest signs.
I thought I said something else for a second. As it was coming into Sean, I was like, gotcha.
No. Hey, no.
Stop the cats. Stop the cats.
Right. So I took off a day to print some picket signs, some protest signs for our local bus drivers. Are understaffed and underpaid. So I don't really talk about doing that stuff. I don't normally post about it too much or really, because I feel like the punkness of it is doing it, talking about, or don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
But I do find myself doing a lot of stuff like this, and also being like kind of introduced into communities that do that stuff like that. So I think punk is the word. I mean, a lot of people say DIY, but I feel like that's a bit different than what we're doing.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? It's like DIY and the word craft have accidentally been a little bit watered down recently. Like,
yeah.
Whereas it used to, I think punk is still pretty cool, and it's still like grassroots, that type of thing, like activism, but not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and where like activism and creativity meet, that's probably where you seem to be from my perspective.
Yeah, I think that's very much so true. I also feel like what I call what we do is like, I would say minimally operational, which helped us a lot over the pandemic, because when they were like, they really needed stuff here to stop, and nobody here was going to stop doing anything, both like frustratingly, but also understandingly, is we kind of were able to close the door, work inside, communicate via email, and kind of do this thing that can be operated in this, really for us, in a 10 by 10 space if we needed to. Yeah. And we always like having that. And I think maybe that punk side of it is kind of making sure we have this buffer between, it's business, so it's hard, it's a constant fight, but having this buffer between kind of like the punching down of the business world and still trying to like allow ourselves to be kind of arm in arm with the community, not getting pulled into, but this is capitalism and I'm in it. But my kind of like, again, nudging that is doing as little as possible, which we find sustainable and, allows us to afford to live. So maybe that is kind of the punk side of it. But like you said, I feel like some of these words, punk, craft, they're pretty, not quite enough to describe it, but I don't think that's a bad word. And Kelly, my wife, the other co-owner of the business, very much so came from like a punk scene. She started printing right out of high school and had a little shop. And she very much so she's the punk of the two. She really brushes a lot of it off on me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. There are some things that I just don't understand, because they're just basically, I don't know what butt rock is. Can you tell us what butt rock is?
Oh my gosh.
I was like, what is this? Am I just missing something?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you fairly familiar with like American music?
Probably like without knowing. You ready? Yeah, go on.
Here it goes. God. You don't see wrong on the reading on the free. I wrote out a free and I knew. Songs like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like I think the movie Ted, a movie that I know of starring Mark Wahlberg. Yeah. Pretty okay movie, but he talks about the singers that sing only in vowels. Yeah. And kind of my obsession with that is, like I said, I was raised in a small rural town that was as far as from punk as we would think it as could be. So a lot of my influence came from the radio. And at the time, that was like all I heard was what I refer to as butt rock, which is really like radio rock, often like sellout rock, Nickelback, Creed, Hinder, Seether, some of these. And it's not bad music. Again, if I hear it, it's very nostalgic for me. But I have found that I'm not the only one. So I jokingly post, or I'll put a poll up, and they are the most engaging things I post.
Yeah, you made a highlight on your Instagram, haven't you? It's like all the polls you've ever done about butt rock.
The responses to the polls are like hundreds, and I don't get that many responses to it. And there will be people that reach out to me like, "Don't call this band, but do not do this." And I'm like, I just asked the question. I'm not sure either. Yeah, but it was kind of something I had inside, and that was maybe like a guilty pleasure. And then the more I, again, put myself out there and was like, other people were like, me too. Like I like Creed too. So that's kind of what butt rock is. It's funny too, because it's making like a resurgence now. I have a 14-year-old daughter who will not stop listening to Deftones, which isn't quite butt rock, but it's, it's a slippery slope, I think, but yeah, it's pretty wild to now. I'm like, is this relevant again? How the heck did this happen? I never thought this ridiculous thing that I had a fascination with would be relevant. So who would you say is your favorite butt rock band?
I don't know about butt rock because I kind of grew up on my dad's music taste, which was American country.
Okay. Such as?
I'm going to say like Dolly Parton and Johnny Cash is kind of rock.
Yeah, it's like
rock,
outlaw country, as they call it. Yeah.
Okay, outlaw country.
Kind of that rugged whiskey and cigarettes and singing about sorrows sometimes kind of stuff. I mean, there are people who say that what country music has now become is very similar to like, it's kind of just like but country at this point, to where it's kind of very generic. Like it's just watered down. Like you said, it gets to the point where it's just palatable and presentable for like, I guess, a mainstream situation, but no favorite butt rock band.
No, because
do you know Creed?
No. Yeah, I know of them, but I couldn't like tell you 3 songs, but I'd recognize the song if it's played.
Oh, I'm envious of that. Sometimes I wish I could have named the songs, but here we are.
Yeah, no, that was really funny. It's funny how like American culture and British culture like do have quite a lot of similarities and stuff, but
there's big gaps too.
Yeah, exactly. But also stuff that we look over at you guys and we think it's part of our culture, but actually we're like, oh no, that's American because we watch like all the movies and stuff. So there's a lot of overlap. This coming back to a little bit of a negative point, but you were saying like there's like staff shortages and things over there. And in England, it's like strike after strike after strike, like every single public service person, like today is teachers, and it's been posted and all this kind of stuff. But it just seems a bit never ending with the negative news. Like how do you kind of like block that from getting to you? And
because I think that typically that narrative, unfortunately, is negative. It is kind of fear mongering when we really catch it. I think it's unfortunate in its simplicity. Is just people aren't getting paid well enough and are being overworked. Like that's a real easy equation. And if like the people and the power that be can't really figure that out, I'm not sure exactly what they can figure out. So for me, it's really simple. It's just almost embarrassing. I try not to get too frustrated with it because it is almost silly. But for me, I think what we're facing is self-reliance. I think, and have dealt with a lot of people here and within the community who have fallen back on themselves. For instance, I have a buddy here in town who working and doing something he didn't like. And then over the pandemic, he's like, I started going out in my garage and making birdhouses. And then he's like, and then I started paying my bills making birdhouses. And I never thought I could do that, making birdhouses. And he makes, I'll send it over to you, but he makes the cutest little like splash of color birdhouses. And he found that he could actually do it himself. And he never thought that. I think a lot of people, the Great Resignation, I think a lot of people found themselves, be it in a different job or being working from home. I think that a lot of people, hustles and grinds, hustle. And it ended up, people went, well, what if I just did this? What if I just really committed myself? And, for maybe because they were really faced with they had to, a lot of people were just like, I had to start doing something different. So that's the positive side for me. I know, I've watched your videos on pop-ups and I appreciate that because again, there are a lot of gaps between where you are and where I am, but to hear that really was on tune with what we're doing here. Every first Tuesday of the month, we have a makers meeting, crafters meeting, small scale manufacturing meeting here. And it's almost become like inadvertent organization for people who are doing these pop-ups that are like, well, what's a good table fee? What's a good booth fee? What are we willing to pay? And I've seen that. And I think what we're witnessing is the largest silent labor strike we've ever witnessed, both where you are and where we are as well. It is happening. And I'm glad we have this conversation as people because this is the reality. But instead of talking about it, the people who are able to just publish, oh, it's bad, these strikers are bad, this is negative fear. But I really think there are positives that come out of it. I unfortunately think there are a lot of negatives that come with it as well, and that's a reality. But from what I see within the community and the people I talk to, and and watching content from people elsewhere saying, oh, I go to a pop-up and of course this works and this doesn't work, but finding that self-reliance. I think a lot of people have done that, and that's not a part of the narrative, I don't think. And I think that's purposeful, because the second you start publicizing a mass strike, it only grows. The people only get more into it. So the quieter you are about the push of it, and the louder you are about the push back, not you, the royal you, I think the more fear mongering there is. But again, I'm very hopeful, just based on the community that we work with. A lot of good things are happening. A lot of people are doing very positive things. So that's kind of how I balance it. Yeah. Because you're right. It is tough. We're
seeing that though, because I actually did. I don't actually watch the news. I don't watch television. I kind of tap into Netflix if I want to, or seek out a YouTube video if I want to. But I don't let adverts just news articles. I don't read the paper or anything like that. But I am weirdly engaged secondhand. But anyway, but you're right about the fear mongering and stuff. But I thought there was going to be this whole big wave of all these businesses going down, and I thought it was going to be extreme. But I haven't actually seen the massive extreme thing that I thought, and I have seen lots of little micro businesses pop up. So it's kind of whenever there's this kind of horrible economic thing, that's when all the new little businesses come out, and it's kind of where our businesses lie. You're saying you deal with the smaller businesses, so really there's just going to be a bigger you're going to have lots of little businesses to deal with and work with and grow with. So it's important to be part of the community, I think.
And I think you're exactly right. And if I were in charge, I would just be investing in in as many small scale operations as you could, trying to get people to be self-reliant, allowing people to operate out of home. I would be laxing a lot of the ordinances and stuff that don't allow people to operate businesses out of a residential. We have that here in America, at least where I am.
Can you? Is that it? You can't hire if it's in your own house?
Oh, it's some business. You're not allowed to run a business out of a house almost entirely in Missouri. There's only certain businesses you can run out of your home. They really want to get you in that commercial property. The lobbyists for commercial property really want you out of your house and into a rental space. But I would flip that on its head, because I think working class people spend money. They're the ones who are generating money back into the economy. And if you give them the self-sufficient ability to generate their own prosperity, their own wealth, their own revenue, they're just going to buy the things they need to buy. And that's how I think you really, right. Of course. Yeah. Not even, but, but yes, very much so. And I think that's unfortunate that the narrative isn't there. Big picture. I'm similar to where I don't watch talking head news. There are a few people that I keep my finger on the pulse of, but I don't really engage with news much at all outside of community-based stuff and secondhand, like you were saying. So I try to build my narrative off of experience and conversations. And from there, I think we can go back from the negative and back to, I am really hopeful that I do see a lot of people, even though they don't have a lot of the assistance and a lot of the help, becoming self-sufficient. I mean, I feel like I see what we're doing as a shop, and what y'all do is very, very similar. So I would be curious as if you feel that way, and how you feel about kind of self-reliance as a shop, and if that's what you aim for, if that's what you're doing per se.
I think so. Say we've drastically reduced our customer base, but all of those people are very small business owners who started maybe a handful of years ago and have grown with us when we used to take orders. I didn't have minimum orders, which I always laugh at. But anyway, they started that. And I'm like, okay, I did actually used to print one-off hoodies and then wonder why I had no money all the time. Anyway, but I started with them when they were super micro new. And then I've kind of plateaued at this size, because this is the size that I'm happy with at the moment. And then, just kept them on. And then our own brand is our main focus at the moment, and that's really fun. So we put a lot of time into making our week fun, full of jobs that we want to do, because I would just be completely burnt out by now.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I feel somewhat selfish when I hear a lot of people talking about burnout, because I think you're right that I've tried to set myself up to where that's very, very, if I sense it, if I'm here during the day and I'm setting up a job, that's one of those jobs that just won't, I have the ability to just walk away.
Yeah.
That was not an option elsewhere. But that a lot of that really just is like, yeah, I can't take on jobs. Again, it goes back to that. But what you were saying made me think too. Do y'all do like you kind of keep an appointment book with your customers, or are they pretty well scheduled to where you're working with businesses that kind of have reoccurring orders, or how do you kind of level out your volume?
We get a lot of inquiries that I literally just push on to maybe 5 to 10 different other small studios like us. If it's like a monster job I don't particularly want, I'll send it to one of the really, really big boys, but that's quite rare. I try and like hand it out to similar shops before. And then our customers, some of them literally just send you like there's one particular guy, he has about 3 or 4 different businesses. He sends a box of hoodies and you're like, who's this from? And then he sends you an email saying, this is the artwork, take your time. You send him the invoice, it's paid in like minutes. Like it's freaky how quick he's on his PayPal button. And it's a piece of cake. It's always easy and there's no interaction. That's basically the customer base. But and then another one's like a cafe owner. I'll do some jobs that aren't particularly like brilliant for us, but she's such a good friend. I'll do them regardless of what she sends. So yeah, but then she also buys into our brand and we see her a lot. So that's it basically.
Yeah, no, I like that inter-support. I think it's interesting too, because I wish there were a better network around me, and maybe that's the long game, but you were kind of saying you network with like co-sourcing with smaller shops or like shops around. What does that network look like? How far away are they? I'm very curious about that. That is cool.
Well, the UK is not very big. So basically people call me up a lot and they're like, oh, I want a local print shop to do this because it's a local, whatever, because they want to put their money locally. And then I'm like, well, there isn't anyone local apart from me. So you can go to the next town or something. But on your scale, we're talking about like a tiny fraction of the edge of Missouri, I'm guessing. I don't know how big it is. So but
Missouri is smack dab in the middle of the United States, and then Colombia is smack dab in the. So we're almost like complete middle of the map. Yeah.
Like, how many hours does it take to get from one side to the other?
So in the state of Missouri?
Yeah.
4 hours wide, if you will.
Okay, that's probably the UK. Yeah. I mean, that's probably like England, because I can get up to Huddersfield in that time. Oh, really? So that's what we're talking about. So in that area. So I can send them up north, but it's actually only like 2 or 3 hours up there. Or in Wales, even I've sent customers because the delivery is the same. Doesn't matter. So
I'm glad you laid that out, because that really does. Like, I'm not the best at geography, but that really does lay out like the difference in size as far as the places we are. I had never considered that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like hyper concentrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Can be a good thing.
Yeah. Can we talk about more of your screen printing practice and like what decisions you've made with like, I know we've talked about your scale, but do you think the equipment you've got is like the sweet spot, or like, are there any other like automations you want to do, or do you think it's all about processes? Or
so I think we'll run through kind of our how we've gone through the process. We started with just a one color, one station. The key being that both Kelly and I had experience before. That's what made, I think we would have quit had we not had the experience. So we started with the one color, one station, printed until we could get a 4-color one station. And we were just doing heat gun at first and a halogen bulb. And this tale as old as time, I feel like, but I love it. Upgraded to a flash unit, printed until we could buy the smallest little buddy conveyor dryer. Printed until we got one of these presses, and then happened upon the other press via Craigslist. Somebody was selling a whole package of stuff in St. Louis, which is 2 hours east in Missouri, for $2,000. So I immediately rented a U-Haul and went and got it. So 2 presses. We bought a dryer from a buddy out of Lawrence, Kansas, which is just past Kansas City west, past Missouri. He owns a huge like merch distro, and they print. So we went and bought this 1983 Hicks 14 foot. It had an extension on it, which was really helpful. Oh, it was frightening. And we ran that until it got to where I would turn it on in the morning. The belt wouldn't go. I would slap the panel and the belt would spin. And then I would just have this sigh of relief every day. So from there, we upgraded so we've got our 2 presses, the 4-color, the 6-color. We upgraded at the beginning of the pandemic. We were very fortunate in that, shout out Columbia Housing Authority here in Columbia, Missouri, had a bunch of projects that they had to free up, and they started just giving out $5,000 grants to small businesses. And so we put that straight into the dryer. We've now got the, the T series, I believe, by
BBC.
From BBC, which is out of Missouri. So we drove and picked that up in a U-Haul. So where we're at right now with that setup, kind of, as I had mentioned earlier, it is perfect. As far as screen printing, I think, and we've talked about, and there's some discussions going on in our Discord group about upgrading presses. I would really like to. Unfortunately, they're more expensive now than they've ever been, which isn't going to change, but it's really reached a fever pitch. So my thinking and my analysis into, is a new press worth it, has become more and more intense. But where we're at right now, I mean, to be honest, and this is something I don't talk about out loud, but this business has netted us over $1 million.
Wow.
Just with these 2 presses. So we could do this forever. And you probably understand that. I could do this forever. I've worked with these presses and I know them. They're finicky and they don't always work with me, but I know them. Yeah. But I do think a manual upgrade would be great. I think it would be cool to get, I don't know if I'd go up to an 8-color. I'll ask you this. How often do you print? Do you have a 6-color press?
Yeah. Are you going to ask, like, how often do I actually get, like, sim process jobs and all that?
Yeah.
Never.
How often? Never. Okay.
No, I have to do them myself for my own interest. And
yep, same. I had a buddy who did art, and I was like, I want to set that 6-color into, I want to see how many colors I can get out of how many values. So I did that, but very, very rarely. So I think we'd probably stick it to a 6-color. I like having that. I like setting up multiple jobs at once, kicking on the dryer, then printing them all, breaking them all down. So I like having the 6-color. So maybe an upgrade with the press there. As far as other equipment, we do deal with a little bit of like heat press stuff. If somebody comes in and just wants one shirt, I can print off a sheet and stamp it if they understand that that's what I'm doing and it's not screen printing. I do like to be upfront about that. I've considered, and in the past have run an embroidery machine. But I know that operating an embroidery machine, and maybe you can give me some feedback on this from a previous experience in the same room as a screen printing setup, and with the dust sometimes makes the embroidery machine even more touchy, and it seems like the more lint that builds up on it. So that's kind of veered me away from that. Maybe get one and set it up at home to start. But you can't do that. I can't do that legally. Don't tell anybody I would do that. But I am comfortable with an embroidery machine, and I've thought about it because we don't really deal with it. And from time to time we contract it out, but I don't really like doing that. I would rather do it in house. Yeah. So maybe in the future, an embroidery machine, but beyond that, I think it goes back to very, very comfortable with where we're at, and very, very, I feel like we know exactly what we're doing, and we could probably just keep doing that forever out of this space, which is 1,200 square feet, more than enough, I think, for a screen printing shop. Yeah. And for what we're doing. So
there's a really interesting metric, which I wish you could just see and it was just visible, but it's just like, there's turnover or profit. So if you even took profit instead and then just divide it by the amount of people who work and are supported by that shop. So for example, if you're turning over a certain amount per person, that might be, I'm just going to like come off with a figure like 80K a person or something. Mm-hmm. And in the big shops, they might be turning over 10 million, but then they've got 40 employees. So you're dividing it by like, okay, but how much, how much impact is every individual person having? Because I could have a team of 10 and still be turning over, not like, it's not like multiplying per person that you bring in all the time, you know? It's like people bring less value.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think that's where my head goes when I think about sustainability as a business. I think there's a lot of the green things you can do, but that operational sustainability, I feel like, I mean, very pro worker. I'm probably on a list now, but very pro that. And as a shop, we, over the pandemic, hired actually my younger brother, who had never screen printed before, but I knew would listen to me and I could train and teach. And I'd never really taught or, worked alongside somebody with the intent for them to kind of take over. But I never wanted to hire anybody until I could generate a living wage for them. I didn't feel like paying them less than would pay their bills did anything but subsidize their labor and allowed the business to grow. So I could never disconnect those two. And I think that unfortunately is kind of the norm in business. So when we bought him on, we were able to pay him a living wage above it, more than a city bus driver gets paid, which is nuts to me, and have given him raises since then. And will continue to, because my goal was to build up this business and not hire anybody until I could afford to. Strange concept. You can't hire anybody until you can afford to pay them a living wage. That for me, that was really a line I had to draw. So again, I think it goes back to that sustainability, and a lot of where the reason I've stayed where I am, and this is a complete agreement from both owners of the business, is because we do feel like it's sustainable. And if we ever needed to scale back, we could. I think sometimes when you get stretched so thin, there is no kind of slowing the train down kind of thing. And so, I think I like where we are enough to just keep doing that.
I think I want to speak to an enormous shop with like 10 autos and stuff to see if they still think, because actually when I've had conversations with the huge people, they're like, they actually do just kind of flippantly say sometimes, I wish it was just me printing on a manual again.
All the time.
Like that is literally their catchphrase. They should have that on the t-shirt. But I don't know who's doing that on that scale and is like happy, but maybe they are. I don't know. I want to find one who... Hey,
shout out. Chessie's looking for folks who are printing on a huge scale and happy. If you're out there, reach out. Yeah. Are you happy?
Do you know The Sims? Do you know The Sims? Yeah. Where they've got all their bars. It's like, I've got my money bar right up here, but then my happiness is like, maybe they can deal with the stress and be happy. That's the one I want to find and see the sweet spot, but I just haven't come across it yet.
Maybe we can shift away from the word happy if I could and talk about the one thing that's really not stopped me from growing, but really kept me on the fence and kept me grounded, if you will, is that growing from here, getting an automatic press, growing as far as volume, as far as, we would need more employees, means I would have to go into debt. I would have to go to a bank and ask for a loan. It's the game to be played. If I'm going to keep growing, and that's my plan, I need to have that bank relationship. I need to have that line of credit. I need to have that to grow. I don't want that. We try to deal with as little debt as possible and try to remain solvent as a business. Again, I got kids. I got other shit to do. If this crashes, I don't want it to happen, but I need to be able to just and walk away. Like that's really what, the sustainability and the solvency of the business. But the thing I fear is just somebody else owning this business. I really feel like, and it's the punk in me. I think maybe that's it. As stupid as that is, but I feel like going into a bank and getting that, yes, it would be possible. Yes, I could get an automatic press and I think I could train a crew to run it and it would be beautiful. And I think maybe I'd be happy, but I'd be in a lot of debt. And and it goes back to shop owners I've talked to, and I can think of 3 occasions where there was a local owner and I could tell he was just unhappy. And then he would make a habit to pop into the shop. He even started coming in the back door, which is like this thing that people do sometimes once they know they're cool. But he would just pop in the back door and hang out and just sit here and watch us print and be like, I wish this is what I was doing.
Jesus.
And, it sucks to hear, but it really does make me appreciate the approach that we've had. Because, I think, again, the biggest fear for me is getting underneath the thumb of someone and, quite literally somebody having financial stake in the business. It's a bank and it's a loan. I understand that. But for me, it's hard to separate the two, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I was like a grant.
I mean, it was really cool because we had never considered that. And there's not often grants that kind of target what we're doing, like PPP loans and stuff. that came in America, the payroll protection loan, since we didn't have at the time a payroll, we weren't able to access any of those. And really, my goal was most certainly for the past 3 years is not to accrue any debt. I think it was a really, really dangerous, unfortunate time to do so. But we avoided that and got to access the grant and dumped it straight into a dryer.
Yeah.
It was, I shout out again, Columbia Housing Authority. Let's go.
No, I accidentally, what was it? It was just slightly bad timing, but there was loads of grants for self-employed people, but we just became directors, and it was like, damn it. So I'm watching my brother, who owns a gym, which was like one of those industries that just got piles of grants. He got like he got all these different grants. He must have got like 25K, and he's not generating, just like flat rate given to you. It doesn't even, not even assessed on his turnover sometimes.
Okay, if I got 25K, I would probably buy a new setup. Yeah,
he did put in some orders with us, he got some more gym stuff for his buddies, but it's like, come on. Smart. I know, I should have just put up some pull-up bars and said it was a gym at the back, but that's hindsight.
I'm glad that happened. I mean, granted that wasn't here, but I'm glad that, you said self-employed, and maybe that's kind of the small scale idea, and that's how they label it here, self-employed, and then you become LLC and an ownership owner. I think you said director is what you'd be. That's kind of the difference for us. But I think giving grants to that self-employed sector is crucial. So 25K would be nice, but shout out.
That was over the course of all of these different things that kept coming out, and we're like, we don't get that one either. We don't get that one. And he was just like piling it in.
What was the limitation? Was just that you weren't strictly self-employed and that you had structured?
Yeah, it was to do with your self-employed like tax return. It was a percentage of the tax return that you'd done like on years past, and they assessed it on that, not on what you were anyway.
Currently, there's no way to, right? Yeah,
we got some stuff. Yeah, we got some stuff, but I had to like apply for them, and they were random. They weren't just given to you. But I do enjoy a grant.
Ours was interesting because the city and kind of its entities engagement process is really weak. But they were just putting in like the local news, and periodically I will look at local news because it's hilarious. One, but two, legally oftentimes these entities have to post publicly to notify, and the local news is where they do it. So I'll look through and came across it, and they were giving out, again, the 90,000, 5,000 split up. What is that? 18 different grants. And they were having trouble getting people to respond. So we kind of took it on ourselves to be like, hey, we got this grant, go get this grant, because their engagement was so weak that they were even having trouble getting people to like reply to it. And I was like, people need this and want this. Y'all got to get on the horn. So we've kind of found ourselves doing that and trying to help others out, because it was kind of a weird realm to be in where there was help that was like missing us, and over here I'm like, dang it. So I even wrote my brother's application for him,
and it was like I did, and it was like the night before. He's such a lazy bugger for this type of thing. I wrote it for him, and then he got exactly the same kit as us, so we even put that in for like cameras, lighting, all this kind of stuff. And I just slightly tweaked it. So it was about like doing videos for personal fitness. And then he just got exactly the same thing as us for one of them.
Did you charge any consultant fees for that?
I should, honestly. A percentage at least for writing it all for him. But having a big brother and who's that disorganized. But he's done really well in his business, really. I'm just joking. I am happy for them. But
lucky to have you.
Yeah. What is, like, hopefully you had a little look at the questions, and I think you're probably going to have a good one. Like, what is your unpopular opinion in the screen print industry?
I replied to your story when you posted that, and I appreciate you posting stuff like that too. And my goal from social media is I try to always interact with that stuff because it is helpful, right? And it was concise, but I think it revisits all of what we've talked about today. Is you do not have to have an automatic press to be successful. And I think in screen printing, you can fill in the automatic press blank with a lot of things. You don't have to have an exposure unit. to be successful. You don't have to really have much. I've tried to really break it down to just S words. So squeegee, someone, screen, substance, substrate. There was like, I had it, because that's really all you need. There's a very simple form of it. And then everything from there just gets, substrate. That's substrate was, because it could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be a shirt. I guess it could be your hand, could be the substrate if you want. But I think that, growing up in rural America, rural Missouri, there were screen printing shops. In the small town I worked in, there were 2 of them. There are people doing what I think you and I are doing at this level in amounts that we could never, ever consider. Every small town in Missouri probably has a screen printer doing something small scale and hopefully kicking butt. But I think that it's easy for the industry to understandably kind of focus on those shops that kind of take off and are big and have these impressive operations. But I really do think they represent a very, 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 very small fraction of the shops that exist. I think the small shops that no one even knows about, like stumble upon some, I hate to make this reference, like has never been found before. Somebody who's just in their house in a town that's 2,000 population in the middle of Missouri, just printing T-shirts because you can. So I think that's kind of the, not the unpopular opinion, but I do think it's a reality is that there's a lot of small scale printers out there, and I think a community of those would be awesome. And I've tried to build up that. But
with your
unpopular, I don't know. The unfeatured maybe opinion of screen printing would be you don't have to have really impressive operations or lightings or camera. You don't have to have any of this. You really don't. And you can still do it. Yeah. And I truly believe that. And I think after meeting people who, again, have found themselves delving into a hobby or something they didn't take seriously and finding themselves and finding success and finding stability, I feel like it is my place to be like, you can do this. Like, you can do this. And I think to touch on it, I think it runs alongside what you're doing. And, what y'all do with the shop is your video series, your educational video series. I think, I try to turn people to those because it goes back to when we started our shop, we started with as small an operation as we could. Small, I think we've spent $400. Just, can we even do this? If we can't do this, then we can't do this. And so when we started, fortunately, we had both printed. I had mentioned that before. But I think screen printing is easy to get into because the overhead can be low. Yeah. But the education is even more important. I think I would suggest if somebody wanted to get into a small scale screen printing operation, that they should just go to you first. Or, people who are doing what you're doing and trying to educate. Yes. Soaking as much up of that as you can, spending 2 months just soaking that up, and then buy the equipment and then take off. Yeah. Because it really is crucial to have that education. Screen printing is fucking hard. It is hard. It is intricate. A lot of it is just making the mistakes as you do it and, solving the problems. But I really think what folks like you are doing are so helpful within the industry and within the community because you're kind of setting people up for success.
It's very kind.
And do you feel that way? I mean,
I truly believe in it, and I truly believe what I'm trying to do is important, and it's not just like some vanity project, because I want people who buy, like, we sell these screens with people's images on and stuff, and then later on we might just sell them the film, and then they expose themselves. And then they want to know like how to print water-based ink. So then I direct them to a video, and then they want to know how to do a market store. So then I have something for that. So I'm trying to like help them through every single stage that they might need help, and where we've needed help in the past. So I've kind of like tailored it towards that. I think it's really important. Like if you had £500 to start, if you took even like £100 and bought loads of books on screen printing, spent like, I don't know, they say like 100 hours to try and like get deep into a subject or a trade or something with your like education on it to kind of get like a base level understanding. Just spend like 100 hours watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts and stuff. That sounds like a lot, but over a month it isn't. And then, build your foundation with your education instead of just going and messing up shirts, getting demotivated. It's like going to the gym without a workout plan or something, or not knowing that chocolate's not the best thing to eat all day. It's like you just need a little bit of education, and then
jumping in a plane and saying, I'm going to try to fly this. I really do think that people underestimate, especially getting into it again, because the overhead, the accessibility, especially in the States, of buying equipment has just, taken off. That the number of times I see people saying, I need to sell this whole setup. And I go, I know what you did. I know exactly what happened. And no, you're not going to sell that whole setup. Let me buy that flash unit. Stop trying to sell that whole setup. Nobody's buying it. Somebody's just going to go buy new.
That's so funny.
Please buy my whole shop.
That is really funny. I had this local guy who was like, do you want to buy in my embroidery business? And I was like, what is that? What is the embroidery business? And it was basically turned out that it was a 15-year-old embroidery machine and literally a handwritten book of his customers' names and mobile numbers. And I'm like, that's not which part of this is a business? Like, I've got all those people's numbers on Google, and I can buy a secondhand machine much cheaper than it was.
Yeah, I'll give you $40.
It is not what you think it is. The business is not the kit. I don't know.
It's the education. I mean, and that's kind of where I think a lot of that with me starts with. I was very fortunate when I started. I took a class in 2004 in high school that was a 3-hour block class because I was taking advanced placement classes, and I was like, oh, I'll take this blow off class, just something for fun. Well, my teacher was so engaged, and I lived in a small rural town, so it was real hit or miss, who was showing up to teach at my school. But this guy had worked in like print press, and he started bringing in all this equipment that we weren't necessarily supposed to or didn't have to like learn about. But next thing you know, he's got us printing shirts for like the football team and the rest of the sports teams, and then the school is not paying anybody to print the shirts, and it's so smart. And I just immediately saw the benefit to it. But it was that free access to public school education that really, I went to school to study biology. I spent 3 years at university and then quit going when I had a kid because there was no financial stability. But my background is not in screen printing. I do screen printing because I was set up for success by somebody who I need to reach out to. I need to find and thank, who I don't know if knew it at the time, but it'd be cool to reach out to and be like, do you know what I've done with what you jokingly, not jokingly, he took it very seriously, but nobody in the class did. Yeah. But that education has changed my life. I mean, and it was a class I wasn't going to take seriously. So yeah, if you, and I said 2 months, I really think if somebody, I'm going to say you because we're here, but I also believe that, and just followed what you're doing and took in what you were doing and learned as much as they could over the course of 2 months, you could really just take off, hit the ground running. And that's such a cool resource to have at will. And if you don't mind, I would like to ask the age-old question about, showing people stuff or helping them do the stuff themselves is, why the hell would you do that? I hear that all the time. Why would you do that? Why would you show somebody else? I hear it all the time too. Why would you show somebody else what you're doing? Why? Because,
I read this one book and I can't remember what it was, but it was about 2 different type of mindsets. There's the abundance mindset, and then there's the closed off shitty mindset that you don't want. Yeah. And the closed off shitty one is like,
which one are you into?
Hopefully the abundance. Oh my God. So basically there's some people who think like there's a restricted amount of money in the world. There's a restricted amount of customers. Everything's like, everyone's just fighting for it and you're never going to get it. And then the other side think there's limitless opportunity. There's limitless money in the world flowing. There's an abundant amount of customers that you can't even imagine, all this type of thing. And there's also like knowledge. If I give away knowledge, if someone else understands how to embroider a hoodie and then knows how to sell it, the likelihood of them actually doing it and being my direct competition across the market from me is 0%. Not going to happen. I'm not worried about that at all. And if they do, then good for them, and I'll probably work with them. Whereas other people are quite closed-minded and they don't want to share that information in case they give themselves a competitor, and I've never been on that side of the fence. So literally
very obvious.
If you can. Yeah.
Very obvious from where I'm standing. I posed that question because, again, I think we're similar in that I burn screens for folks who print here in town. I totally agree that there is kind of this mindset, and it's a touch of what I call business sociopathy. You become like everybody's out to, you're punching out, everybody's out to get me. And I've seen it before. I've worked for people who are very much that way. But we, over the course of the pandemic, started live streaming the shop. And I do live streams from time to time, never really on a schedule, but it's just us printing. And, you know, it's not a huge audience, but from time to time, there's screen printers who pop in and we'll have questions or just check in, or people who have never seen screen printing done before who are instantly like, oh shit, I didn't realize how hard this was, because it's so hard. It's not something that somebody's going to see and go, going out tomorrow, I'm doing it. Like, you would really have to commit yourself to doing it, which I support and would direct them straight to you, because you're completely right that old kind of gate kept competitive notion is absolute rubbish. It is not true. It is, you can do what you're doing and bring up the people around you, even in the same exact field, and be fine. And I feel like that is a big lie we're told. You can't help the people around you if you want to be successful.
Yeah. There's actually a local cafe owner. I brought her up recently. I said, like, oh yeah, she's a friend of ours. She owns a cafe and she collaborates with everyone. Other cafes, other people who make cakes, restaurants, shops, everything. She'll have anyone in there. And like, just on like pop-ups, come and use her space. And it's so open and abundant and positive and loving that's why she's so loved in the community. And she'll always be like, you know, everyone will always go to her and support her and buy from her. Yeah. Whereas if there's other ones, there are chain ones where no one gives a shit if that business goes down, like couldn't give a shit. And then like I think there's nothing negative comes from all that kind of openness. It's just the way to go. It's more fun. It's more fun to go right back to the word fun, as we, you know, this kind of started and I've not found any negative. You know, I'm kind of a proof of concept person where I'll throw something out there, and if it doesn't work, I've learned my lesson. But I've thrown this stuff out there and kind of, as I said, over the pandemic, I had never considered streaming or considered that. I'm not really comfortable on a camera, which is weird, right? It's I actually genuinely don't get that, because sometimes I push through it, but I didn't see it. I really push through it, but it gives me high anxiety. But I've found success in it. But at first, it was just me going. People would be like, "I really want to see this print," or sometimes I have pals that I'll send them a photo, you know. And I started going, "Just tune into the stream. I'm printing it now." You know, what if you make a mistake? I don't care if I make a mistake on live stream. I don't make too many, but I'll also probably get a chance to show how to fix them. But again, as far as like value to our business, it was huge. And also via Twitch, people can subscribe, so it pays. Like, it's not substantial, but it's enough to like afford a new camera or something, or kind of to keep doing it and keep that going. But I think for us, you know, the person you had mentioned in your community is oftentimes communities like that need leaders. And the sociopaths are usually pretty hard to notice. And you immediately notice when it's somebody who's on the opposite side of that, who's a good leader, who doesn't want to be in the way. They just want to be helpful. And I've kind of tried to take that on here in our community, as I said, with having the meetings here the first Tuesday of the month. We do pop-ups here. We have a retail space up front. Let's see if I can pan over there. So we're in the middle of like stocking and doing some stuff over here. Typically I'll have some artist stream on here on this TV playing during the day if people come in. We have shows in here. If somebody comes to me with an idea and they're like, I think I can do that in this space, I go, let's try it. Yeah. What's the worst that happens? We try it and it sucks and we laugh and we don't do it again. So I really appreciate people who are doing, you know, what the person you had mentioned. And I admire that, because it's something I've really strived to do. And again, to go right back, it's really made people appreciate and understand, like really understand what we're doing here. Like it really is important for me. You know, some business are like, we're closed off, we're not real, we're this website, and I understand that. But for me, I really find a lot of solace, and it can only be fun for me if people get what I'm doing here. Yeah. So putting myself out there has been a result of, I think people need to know what I'm doing and what, you know, others are doing too. With the stream, I would love for it to be a 24-hour stream where 24 different shops from all over the world pop in for an hour and just live stream their shop. You know, that would be really, really cool.
I'm really not good at like pitching it and stuff right now, because oftentimes the shop itself is busy enough that it is just kind of creative endeavor. But I would love for it to be something even bigger, not even limited to screen printing. If somebody's like, hey, I kind of want to go at live stream, I want to see how it goes, I would like to give that space and that platform. So it's been cool to build up this business. And again, to go back to it, create this little helpful space. You know, I really like being helpful. So
yeah. So like you do have a Discord group and stuff, don't you? Because I'm not actually a part of it. Yeah.
I keep tagging you in there.
Yeah. I'm really bad at Discord. I'm like, I don't even, the only one that I don't even know how to use Discord, basically, even though I've got my own channel for one of my things, but I haven't got my head into the gamer kind of social media things yet. You're tagging me in it and I haven't seen it.
Well, it's
I think I've got multiple accounts. I think I've got... You might. It doesn't really matter, because the things I'm tagging, or I'm just sending people to you, or I'm mentioning you.
We were talking about new presses, and somebody mentioned one of the new Anatols, or what we're doing right now to kind of riff on it is the Discord is just mediocre. If anybody's curious and would like to be invited, it's very open. I really like Discord because there is no public feed. We've tried to create multiple channels, one about ink, one about garments, one about supplies, and it kind of sections off these conversations. There is one that's for chit chat, and it's kind of a stream of consciousness. Or I mentioned you because I think yesterday, the day before, I posted in there, screen printing shops, are you doing pop-ups? What works and what doesn't? Because after your video, I was like, this is very in tune. Again, how many people are kind of feeling this out? So there's people that reply, and there aren't hundreds of people in there. I'm not a millions kind of person. I'm not even like a thousands kind of person. If I could get dozens of people in there, that would be cool. For what we're doing, that feels nice. It's not overwhelming. But the Discord has really allowed, to kind of craft this community that, again, I haven't put much into it, but it kind of just happens, which is, it's really, really organic, which is something that's, again, cliche, but apparently possible to do. So we'll have to get you on there, because
I think it's on my computer. If I sound really like I don't know what I'm doing with technology, but on my phone I've got one Discord, and then I've got another one on my computer that I just don't look at, but I've logged into something else accidentally. Made multiple accounts, so I'll get on there today and I'll figure that out.
touch on this real quick is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do TikTok stuff, correct? Are y'all still doing TikToks?
I'm going to get back on TikTok. We grew it to like a nice, decent level. And then it
plateaued, right?
I just got bored of it or something, or it changed or something. But I need to get back onto it. But it's completely changed its angle again. Like it's looking at something completely different. So I think there's still value there.
For me, it was, am I going to do TikTok or am I going to do Discord? Because it does get to where you have like app exhaustion almost, to where you're like, I'm at my limit. I don't need any more apps. I totally understand that. And I feel like that's definitely a thing. So I think instead of doing TikTok, which I've never messed with, I just went with Discord.
You're really think popular on TikTok though, because you're a personality.
I know, but I feel like a lot of the stuff, it's so weird, because I would never commit like hours to making a social media video. You can tell that some of the stuff is just first take and stupid and purposefully. Like I have a reel, because reels are weird and fake and the engagement is false. I have a reel that has like 33,000 views right now, and it is just me out folding the folding machine.
Yes, I saw that one. That is funny though, because people who don't understand folding but that hit right. I understand why that video went well.
It still is, but I'm like, I literally made this to be kind of a snub at the machine and dumb.
Did you do it backwards? Do you have it folded and then you just scuffed it? Or did you fold it in real time? I don't remember. In real time?
I think I folded it in real time, and then I act like I can't fold it, of course, to try to keep up with the machine that's incredibly slow, and I can riff on some of these machines. Yeah, I could riff on some of these machines all day, but it was kind of that. And then I even put like the, and apparently that's a hit on the internet. And I didn't know that. But nothing else I've done has reached that level. And to be honest, it's also silly to me because I've gained no traction off that. Nobody has followed me. It's all really based off of views, and that's what Instagram hey, you got this many views. And if I gave a shit, I'd be making one of those videos every day, because why not? But a lot of it feels so empty and disingenuous. I'm really looking for genuine content. I'm really looking for genuine conversations. So when something like that happens, it's so silly to me, but it also makes total sense. So a lot of it I avoid, or like I'll pop in real quick and pop out. And I really felt like TikTok was, if I jumped into it, it was going to be so much more of a commitment. And kind of the feedback I had gotten is a lot of the editing and stuff gets so intense that I was like, I just don't think I have this time to commit. And again, it was at a similar time in which I was I was doing Twitch stuff, and then also doing twitch.tv/mediocre television. Come check it out. It gets weird sometimes, but mostly screen printing.
It does get weird sometimes when you do
it does.
You snap into butt rock stuff and you're like, what is this?
Yeah, sometimes I play video games too, because I'm not a gamer, but Twitch is the gaming world. So I'll play a game that's, kind of goofy, or I'll find an indie game that is a game where you're a cashier and you're just checking food and act like that's my job for the day. Like I got hired for it. But gaming is what Twitch is, kind of the crux of, even though it is a good space, I think, for doing like workshop streams and crash streams. But at that time I was doing Twitch and Discord, and I was full. Yeah. My plate was full, and I was like, if I'm going to do TikTok, I just don't have the time to commit to it. I think we did create one, and then we forgot the password, and then we just let it go too, which is, I'm getting old, so it's like, I'm not logging back into that damn thing.
There is something that you're saying about the virality of like these things. Like we got picked up by, do you know, like Lad Bible? Do you have Lad Bible?
Yeah.
Our video got shared by Lad Bible, and they didn't even fucking tag us in it. It was like some weird, like other people were tagging us in it. And we're like, what is this?
Yeah.
We didn't. And then the assumption from people who don't have social media is like, well, they must have got loads of money off that Lad Bible viral video. It's like, no, not really. Like, did that translate into real sales? No, not really. And did we get loads of followers? Yeah, we did. But then they realized that we're not making weird viral videos. So then they just they're not interacting with us. So
I found that a lot of the followers I was getting too, because every now I would open up, my notifications will just be full with somebody liked. And I was like, you want me to bite on this? But I would click them, and some of them have 0 posts and are like cutouts. And I'm like, this is so obvious. Like, I guess maybe there are people that get that big dopamine hit off seeing that row of likes. But for me, I was like, wait, it's very obvious that none of this is real. None of it's real at all. And again, I think that, generating revenue via my creative endeavor, Instagram, isn't where I'm at or where I need to be, fortunately. But I'll be damned if I made that post and it was viral, and I almost feel like Instagram's like, come on, make another one. And so I made another one, but it was not along the same lines, no music. I never put captions. And I posted it, a reel. And instantly I got a notification from Instagram that said, we'll pay you $10 for every reel you make.
What?
And I was like,
see that. What?
Are you hitting on me? Like, what are you doing right now? It's like somebody it was like this. Like I posted that, and then all of a sudden it was like, you want $10?
Oh God, you're freaking out. That's like,
you want $10, my man? And I was like, oh my God, this probably really gets people though, especially, economic strife, that people are like, I do, I'll sign me up. So I've avoided
breaking
a lot
the
of
third
that.
wall, Jonathan, you're freaking me out. Like,
it was weird to interact with, and at the end of the day, it never felt genuine. And I was like, this isn't my space. Maybe every now and then I'll throw something up, and if it goes viral, which just means it got a lot of views, I guess in this case, especially with the reels. And I think a lot of that is padded because reels and Instagram is really just wants to be TikTok, because TikTok just has the most streamlined algorithm. Stuff you like, nonstop. Stuff you like, nonstop.
Yeah.
Genius in the worst way possible.
Test you sometimes, and then you accidentally like something, and then you get pulled into like really niche, weird TikTok, and you're like, oh, I'll quickly search something that I like to bring me back into
TikTok does just this thing, but they're just like, well, do you like baseball? You're like, oh shit, I liked baseball. Oh, I don't. I have to. How do I? You know what I mean? Like they really do. They try to get you. It's strange how much it is like somebody coming around a corner while you're walking. You're like just trying to shop, and there's somebody from an alley that's like, hey, we got baseball. You're like, oh, okay, I'll check out baseball.
Yeah, there is another side of Instagram which I've actually found is very effective for stuff. So like for the brand stuff, when we do a market store, we just post on our stories, this is what we're doing today. And we've got a small following of like 1,000 something for that, which we've never put any marketing into at all. We haven't even done photography photos. And watch that story and come right down. They literally drive to get to the market and buy the stuff that they just saw.
That's so cool.
We have that like 5 or 6 times from customers saying, I just saw this on Instagram. Is it still here? And we're like, wow, this is effective on this micro scale. But on the really big scale, it's just noise and they're not really. But
genuinely, right? I really do think there is space on Instagram, and I have very good luck locally. Like you're saying, there is a way to do that. I mean, also I have a platform to where if some local musician does something and I reshare it, and it is helpful. Yeah. And so, but I do feel like Instagram's like, I don't know about that. What if you made a reel? And I'm like, hold on, damn it, this is possible. You just stay out of the way. Yeah. I feel like you also touched on the idea that oftentimes people don't understand that viral content, and part of why it was so weird for me, it was because it was my content that I had shared, because a lot of this stuff is like parasitic. Like someone will take your good content and share it and they monetize it. So they're making money off of your content. And I think in an age in which we're like, the algorithm and AI, it's very easy to do that and for that to get heightened in accordance with whatever is popular. But that is exactly what that is. And to me, even worse, to where somebody is taking the time you've put in and just rerouting it through basically their monetary funnel via a social media platform. And that I'm glad that it gets eyes on it and you hope that it turns back to you. But the reality is it doesn't. And it's not built to do so. Like for the most part, it's there for people to find you. What are the rich people going to do when they find out you've got all their money? They're going to reshare your posts and what you're doing that's cool and then make that money. And that kind of sucks. That aspect stinks.
Yeah, there are Instagram accounts which are doing that. They just find the best of using hashtag screen print. They take your stuff. From the outside, it looks like, oh, wow, this is the treasure trove of content in our industry. Yeah. But I had to block one because it's like, no, piss off. I'm spending all this time making the videos. You're passing it off as like yours or something because you're not tagging me in it. I'm finding it or being told that it's out there. I think intellectual property is something that we should be mindful of and ownership of that. So corporations don't use it.
I think having these conversations too, where, it is actually somebody who's like, oh, this silly thing I did went viral, but then it was because somebody else grabbed it and, was a parasite about it. I think that's really easy to look over when you're not engaging with the platform in this manner. But anyway, I still think there's good stuff going on there, which in total, not so much, but in spots, very good stuff. I think you're one of them.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Can I ask you about your shop hacks? I already know like 4 or 5 of your shop hacks, but are there any like new ones that you've come across or you've documented quite a few?
Yeah, the Scrabussy was a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain that one?
What's the rating on this podcast?
Whatever we want. I do adults and there's a box that says expletives. I put the expletives box.
Okay. Well, I'm going to avoid some words.
I know the action thing.
There's a trend within kind of like the queer community around me, of which I'm a part of, to call a certain thing a bussy based on an American word that sounds similar. It's kind of strangely like silly but inclusive in this dumb way. But I made the scrubber, which is just 2 scrubbers zip tied together and screwed it in. And I started using it, and my brother who works here was like, dude, that looks really bad. Yeah. I'm just, but it's, putting something that I'm not usually this kind of humor person, but something that is very phallic into a spot. And I was like, well, I guess we better make a video about it then. And so we grabbed the camera and we just shot it really quick in one take. And the silly thing is it works really well. It works really, really well.
It's really innocent, and it's a practical cleaning device, but it also looks...
It was one of those things where I was back there and here it is. I'm having this great idea. I'm like, oh my gosh, this works. Why didn't I think of this sooner? And then somebody was immediately like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? And I was like, no, it's not what it looks like. But other shops have hit me back and been like, I did this. This is great. And I have great ideas, none of which are original. The scrub bussy being one of them. But yeah, we posted that. And then I think as silly as it was, people actually utilized it. It worked in a strange way. So that's a shop hack, if you will. I think maybe another one is, oh, shoot. I don't really think of much of what I do as hacks. Usually it's just silly things. I do think our hack is and a lot of people do this, isn't original, but we did build our own filtration unit. Yeah. Which I think a lot of shops should really, really look into.
You got a YouTube video about it?
I do, and we've actually improved it since then and changed some things. So I need to make another one, but very affordable. I think we spent under $150 total, and it has made a huge difference. And really gives us, unfortunate, once you start filtering that stuff, you're like, oh, shit, this is terrible. And I worked at a shop for a long time and kind of naively assumed, oh, this is fine. And then the second we started even doing the most rudimentary filtering, I was like, oh, gosh. So currently it's just a reservoir, and we have two basins that both have plumbing, PVC pipe that leads to the top of the reservoir. We have two screens, low mesh, I think a 60 and a 40. And then it fills the reservoir, and there is a sump pump that has a filter on the bottom of it, and it pumps the water out and then through really, really cool, really cheap, bought some inline micron filters that just screwed directly into a garden hose. And you could put a few of those in line, but we have one of those before it makes it to the actual drain. And it's cool to unscrew that thing and see even how clean the water is by the time it gets to that last filter. Yeah. And not buying an expensive one and kind of building it myself. I think people should be encouraged to do that. And I would love to help people do that, because it is, I think, a very important shop hack, getting that shit out of the water. No matter, even if you're doing water-based, no matter the ink, a lot of what we keep out is the emulsion. I mean, the emulsion only breaks down so far. I do believe it remains a solid, even microscopically. So it's probably the most important thing we know that we're getting out of the system. Most of the ink, even plastisol, we've got removed by the time we're sending it through. But yeah, you got to get that emulsion out of the drainage system, because it's gnarly.
Yeah, and some people aren't soaking the emulsion off properly. They're actually just blowing it off with pressure washers in chunks, and it goes down the drain because they don't know how to use it properly yet. So it's like,
and I think that's an important point. I mean, that's maybe something worth sharing, is because it's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong because you're getting the screen reclaimed. But I do think it's important to make note that if you're blowing off the emulsion and it's remaining, like you'll see like sheets, right? That it almost comes off in sheets. Yeah, like chunks. That's not enough. So that's not only is that going to affect the sewage system downstream, that's going to clog up. That's going to be the first thing that clogs up your system and makes things harder for you. Even if you're not helping people down the stream, it's going to make your job harder. So that's an important point, I think, is the key to really doing this, is really getting that emulsion to where it's almost completely gone by the time you're spraying it, right?
That's you're breaking it down into its like chemical components, which are then more like drain safe, as they say. But I don't really. Can't ever really be, but anyway. So like what's on press today? What are you working on later?
Let's see. We've got, my brother should be showing up any minute. I'm printing for a local cafe. Shout out Cafe Berlin, a local breakfast and brunch spot that sources locally made breakfast foods just down the road. Good. They deserve it. They're killing it. They have a venue and shows and stuff too. And they have an evening events where they do have a bar. They're currently doing like live D&D events, which is really cool, which is something I've always wanted to figure out how to help people do. And then it started happening and I was like, yes, this is cool. So printing a 4-color front pocket, 1-color back They sourced a local artist, shout out Jack Creasy, Young Creamy, to do the back art. I'll send you some photos, or I'll post some stuff. And then I'm actually going through the process of itemizing our inks and getting a documented ink system that people can choose from rather than having all the options, because I think we can create a 36 color system that people can be like, I like that one. Because we spend a lot of time mixing inks, and it does get really wasteful, because it is fairly hard. It's possible, but to determine how much ink you need for a job. And it is really hard. It's really easy to overmix the amount you need.
Yeah. I'm in exactly the same thing, but I've gone through every single transition and method for that. I think we need some Pantone mixing, but then just consolidate all this nightmare that's accidentally accumulated on the side as well.
Well, I really feel like, and I this came from Allison at Parkway Print Shop here in the States in Virginia. The number 36 is what we kind of jokingly agreed on, or I think she landed on. I think if we got 36 base colors, that 99% of the time people would find them. I wouldn't mind mixing a Pantone ink less is all. I wouldn't mind doing it sometimes, but we do it a lot. Or not even a Pantone. I think for me, I get particular, and since the customer hasn't made a choice, I'm trying to like do something perfect rather than giving them the options and them going, yeah, that pink there works. I think that'll look great, and letting them kind of have that license too, and removing myself from it, because I get real self-critical, and I'll adjust an ink for hours if I allow myself to. So not having that and creating that space and that wall, and just going, okay, this color and this color, but also, you know, to get away from the idea of writing things down on a legal pad, name and phone number. I would like this business to have some sort of structure. And be easy enough to where almost anyone could come in and do it.
Yeah, like your brother can just pick it up.
Yeah, so we do have a system to where anybody on the press has both Trello and then the invoice. The invoice tells them the shirts, the numbers, they count them, lay them out, and then our job approval form, which is available on the iPad next to the press, has the job approval form and then the listed inks. And I would love for those words to just be inks we have, those inks listed on there, because sometimes I'll, you know, it's a Pantone or this, but it would be nice for whoever's over there to go red, yellow, blue. Those are the colors. Of course, we don't have a blue because that's not a real color, right?
Yeah.
I have 432 blues.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
So
I'm looking at shit ton of blues.
I literally pulled them down, and I was like, what the hell? This nobody even knows this many blues exist. Why offer that?
I know. Yeah, it has gone mad, and you can accidentally, because you can see these big shops and they've got like walls and walls and walls for them. And it can't, surely that's money. That's thousands of pounds worth of money sitting on their shelf. Anyway.
I think that's one of the kind of the not the downside, but with Plastisol ink is it feels so like the shelf life is forever. So you could just sit here with stuff that isn't being used because, you could open it one day, reconstitute it and use it. I think that's where sometimes like water-based stuff, you have to be more mindful of like shelf life and how long you're using stuff, because it can't just really sit there for a long time and be usable. We do both. We have both Plastisol and water-based and try to do a little bit of both. And we also have customers that request either or both. So yeah, right now trying to work through this ink system. If you got any tips, let me know.
We're going to do a whole video on it, because it is something where we're literally pushing up against and running out of shelf space. But
yeah.
That's what I was. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I got to where I was like, build more shelves, which is, I'm a big like transportation advocate. And the idea is the roads are too packed, build more roads. And that doesn't work. It just needs more cars. If I build more shelves, there's more ink. Yeah. So I completely agree with that.
We'll probably do it exactly the same time. But yeah, I'd like to see your tactics as well, because I haven't figured it out yet.
I hate showing my tactics. I'm not a great teacher, because I feel like I'm glad people like you are doing what you're doing and teaching, because sometimes I feel motivated to do so, but I feel like I just do everything so my way that I'm like, if I start showing this off, people will be like, what are you doing? And it works. It works here. You know, I feel like I have a system, but for the most part, I feel like people will be like, why are you doing that way?
Yeah. I just don't care anymore. I just don't care. I just don't give a shit. I
think that's the push I have to get is when I finally make something, when I finally create something, I do adopt that. I just go, just fucking, who cares? Who cares?
No one's looking.
I'm trying to get better at that. Yeah, no one's looking. It's just for me. It's just for us. And then if somebody does, cheers to them.
Yeah, how about it? I don't know.
Be careful. Be careful. It gets weird. Yeah.
I feel like we could go on for hours, and I probably have to like interview you annually now because
I would love that. I would love to also have you on the live stream at some point and kind of navigate that and figure out how to get you on the Discord, because I feel like people mention you and reference you quite a bit. I also
get
feel like I shared
all the time on like loads of different stuff.
I listen to the podcast. I'm not the best at consuming screen printing content because I feel like it overwhelms me because I screen print so much. But I watched the video with Josh. Shout out Josh at Print Screen. And I really appreciated what he mentioned, and we kind of touched on that because what we're doing, I would love to see him do. And we talk about, I'm like, dude, it's possible. It's possible. The timeline is longer. You know, if you go to the bank tomorrow and they give you a bunch of money, you could shorten that timeline, but just be patient. And I definitely think, you know, folks like Josh, and you meet a lot of people who are doing it and you're like, they're totally capable of just knocking this out of the park. You know, I really do think Josh is incredibly talented. So it was good to hear him shout me out. And I'm glad people are mentioning my annoying ass. Cause
your fan base that I know of, no, you've got like a fan base among like English print shop owners, but I'll try and, I'll tell you about it when it happens. Yeah.
Real quick, I want to touch on this because I don't have many like acquaintances or like contacts in England. But when I first started streaming, I want to give a shout out to a tattoo artist in North of England is what I always say. He's in maybe Cumbria.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that sound correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Tattoo artist. But over the pandemic, when he got shut down, he started doing his oil paintings live on Twitch.
Nice.
And I guess the side note is you can really find good content and meet genuine people via some of these streaming apps, as much as they're marketed like, oh, come play Halo or come play the shoot people game. I would wake up every morning and have my coffee at 6 a.m. because, of course, it's noon there. And he would paint and I would watch it, and ended up making a pal that, you know, we kind of riff back and forth about who's visiting. Is he visiting the States, or are we going to England first? So it's been discussed that we might visit the UK. But again, venturing outside of screen printing and having a community that lands you pals that you communicate with around and can bounce stuff off of in all parts of the world has been just such a cool thing to experience. And, you know, to touch base with somebody like this, we're miles away from each other, but it is kind of wild how similar, you know, the human and the genuine side of it gets. So, yeah,
I'm going to have to come on to Twitch and all that kind of thing a bit more. And I understand that. I'd love to do a live stream. Why not? Just flick it on, and you don't have to just them watching you from a distance. What's happening? You don't have to interact with it too much. Yeah.
The really nice thing I like about it, and we can hop off here because I could talk all day, is the live interaction. And with my channel, again, it's not hundreds of people, but there are going to be people that come in that ask. I have people come in here, and I don't really know how to I just need to do it and then publish it more. I'm not the best at publishing or editing. I need to hire somebody. But I have people come in, and the number of times people have been like, "Holy shit! The people you have in here are asking really, really great questions that are genuinely engaged and live." Like, you know, if somebody wants to come in, sometimes with screen printing and stuff, the best time to ask the question is in person, but we're far away. So like giving people that opportunity to kind of have the live engagement, I think it brings to the surface just like different questions than you would see that land in like YouTube comments and stuff like that. It really brings just a completely different atmosphere to a conversation like this. And it also drives the conversation because, granted, we didn't really have anything scripted for this. You can kind of let the crowd kind of take you places, and, you know, and sometimes that's really fun. And that's where my randomness comes from too, is I kind of let people take the reins. And next thing you know, we're talking about our favorite kind of potato chips, you know, and having in-depth arguments about which potato chip is better, or, you know, stuff like that. So I would love to have you on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
but it's less edited, isn't it? If it's live, you just ask it. Whereas if it's a YouTube comment, they have to edit themselves in case they get criticism. It's like bullshit. But
I feel like with the live stream, there's less overthinking. And I really appreciate that as somebody who gets anxiety of like the preparation of things, to just go for it and throw myself in there. I find I'm better at going, okay, what do you got? Okay. Like that's really, really fun for me. And I think we could have a lot of fun. I think a lot of people could. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you, but we can revisit that. And I would love to have this conversation or any conversation anytime.
Yeah,
so,
well,
thank you.
Book me on in a couple of episodes when I've like watched a couple, so I understand what it is. Like,
we'll see. I did one with Josh that I need to edit and publish some of, but it's just fun. It's just really laid back and spur of the moment. So if it ever works out, we can do it. I appreciate you, Chessie. Anything I can chat about anytime, I would love to. Have a good day.
Andy, bye.
Bye.